Thank you, Melissa. I'm just gonna share my screen. Give me one second. All right. Thank you, everyone. As Melissa said, my name is Elena Kendrick, and I'm a career coach here in the Office of Career Success. I'm so happy to be here this morning with all of you to talk about a very important topic. So, whether you're kind of gearing up for your first time ever interviewing, or you've had some interview experience and you're kind of just looking to improve your skills, this session will hopefully help you kind of manage your expectations around interviewing and gain some confidence with the whole process because it can be a little bit overwhelming. So we'll be talking about, what employers are kind of looking for in the interview process, how you can prepare effectively, and what type of things you should say, or in some instances, what to avoid saying to really impress a hiring team. So our goal for today is that you'll walk away with just a couple of practical tips to really help you stand out and hopefully land the opportunity that you want. So as Melissa said, this is our last series session in this series, and the rest of these recordings can be found on iConnect, so feel free to give those a watch. And this is sort of our overview for today's workshop. So just to begin, I'm going to be providing a quick game plan for interview success that you can refer to. You can come back to it when you do get that first interview request and run through it, check things off. Then we'll focus on interview fundamentals and strategies. So what are the basics? What are things that you need to know? What should you expect? And so these will just be a couple of helpful reminders along the way. We'll spend a lot of time talking about how to develop strong and impactful interview stories and responses using a framework like STAR. The STAR method really helps to build those stories for you, and it's a nice structure that kind of puts your answers together in a succinct way. We'll talk about professional communication and how to properly follow up after an interview. And then I'm going to be sharing a lot of tools and resources that you have available to you for free that you'll want to take advantage of to best prepare and practice. So here's that game plan that I was referring to, which basically is just a roadmap. And we're going to dive into each of these pieces a lot more. But essentially, you'll want to first research, then practice, then execute your performance. So in interview research, we're going to talk about how to better understand the job description, a little more about the company and the industry, how you can really leverage networking to really learn more about the opportunity or answer some questions that you might have even before you jump into an interview. We'll talk about how using research really helps to align your interview stories accordingly. And then once we've done sufficient research, you'll want to spend some time practicing, of course. So again, you have so many resources to you through iConnect. For example, we have an interview page. We have an excellent guide to interviewing. We have Big Interview as a resource, which I will be walking you through later on in the presentation. So definitely take advantage of those platforms just to help you get started. But even casually just practicing with family or peers will help you really increase your confidence. You're always welcome to schedule a mock interview session or appointment with a career coach so that we can kind of walk through what that environment might look like, what questions you might encounter, and you can kind of get that practice in as well. And then lastly, in your actual interview, it's important you'll want to make a strong interpersonal connection with them, show that you have a genuine interest and that you're thoughtfully preparing. This is your time to really market your skills and your experiences and showcase why you're the best fit for this opportunity. And so being nervous is okay, but in the moment, you really do want to focus on your performance. So we'll jump into all of these things more deeply. So interview fundamentals and strategies. So, my first kind of reminder or tip is around professionalism, being prepared, and being engaged. So, it goes without saying that making a positive first impression is really critical in interviewing. Um, and what kind of goes into a first impression? Not just one thing, it's a lot of little things like your etiquette, your professional attire, your timeliness, your attitude. All of those are factors that they're going to be assessing. But let's start with kind of etiquette and attire. So nowadays, a lot of corporate settings are more casual than ever, especially post COVID. So knowing how to dress for an interview isn't always 100% clear, but if you're ever unsure about a dress code, just remember it's always better to be too formal than too informal. And the default for interviewing usually is business professional. So try to focus on, more neutral colors and patterns. Avoid anything that might be a little bit too distracting, whether that is, strong perfume or cologne or wearing a lot of jewelry or having those like bright, loud colors and patterns. So I always say like you can never go wrong with just a simple suit, black, navy, or dark gray. Um, we do have a really awesome Eisenberg Dress for Success guide, which you can find on iConnect. And on this slide, I have some pictures of our student models that are demonstrating what business professional looks like versus business casual. So feel free to get a better sense of like what types of pieces you can wear. But at the end of the day, you really do want to be authentic in what you're wearing. So if your outfit does feel uncomfortable or doesn't really feel like you, I don't want that to negatively affect or impact your focus or your confidence in the interview. So try to find something that, of course, is professional and appropriate, but still feels like it's showcasing who you are. So again, what else goes into, impressions? Being on time is a very important factor. And I always say it's not enough to just be on time. It's better to be early because you never know. You always want to account for, things that might come up or get in the way. So that's always going to be a way to show them that you're taking this process really seriously. And in your introduction, another way to show that, um, you are engaged and you're, being respectful and professional would be to make, eye contact and provide a solid handshake if it is an in-person interview. If it's virtual, your body language will be what is, going to be showing how engaged you are, and we'll talk more about that. But all of these things go into the first impressions. Number two, do your research. So having sufficient background knowledge about a company, about the role, about the industry that you're interviewing for is going to be important because that's going to be what lets the conversation flow a little bit more naturally. So we're going to dive into how to properly research before your interview, but at the kind of core or to kind of get started, I would say always look at the job description again, review it, learn more about the people that you'll be meeting with. If you can look them up on LinkedIn, see if you have anything potentially in common with them or talking points that you can bring up in the conversation. And then of course preparing some questions for them as well will be a way to show that you've done your research. And then be engaged. So we want to send a signal to the interviewer that we came prepared, that we really want this, and kind of just be aware of how we're showing up. So it can be something as simple as like sitting up straight in your interview, looking into the camera occasionally, minimizing distractions. So making sure that your phone is powered off or, silencing any notifications that might throw you off or just be an awkward kind of moment in the interview. Taking notes is a great way to show that you're engaged too. And you can ask the interviewers like, hey, as we're talking, is it okay if I jot down a few notes as I'm learning more about the company and the position? I'm sure they'd be happy to let you do that. And then pay attention to every interviewer that is in the room with you. So Sometimes you might be in a situation where you're doing like a panel interview or there are multiple people at once asking you questions. So you want to make sure to give each person that you're interacting with or encountering equal acknowledgement and attention and respect. And these are all just kind of small ways that you'll be able to signal and show them how committed you are and how interested you are. All right, two, effective communication. So obviously, interviewers are going to be analyzing your communication during the interview, but they'll be doing that beforehand and after as well. Professional business communication is one of the first things that they're going to be assessing. And sometimes it happens even before you meet them. And so it could be something as simple as the way you write your emails or how quickly you respond to their messages or um, basically how you follow up with them. Because this gives companies insight into what it would really be like to work with you and communicate with you on the job. So if they are looking to kind of gauge like your responsiveness or your reliability, they're going to be looking again at how you respond to some of those things and how clearly you communicate. So pre-interview, always try to be available and responsive. And when you are, messaging, make sure you show excitement and gratitude for the opportunity. Making sure you have all of the necessary details for the interview will not only ease your nerves, but make you feel more prepared. So they might, of course, tell you if it's a phone interview, if it's virtual, if it's in person, they'll probably tell you the time and the date, but make sure if there are other questions you have that you ask those ahead of time. Like if it is in person, what is the parking situation? Or do you have the contact information of somebody you can reach out to if something does go wrong or you can't find the place to go? So those things I think are good to confirm ahead of time. Post interview, again, your communication will be assessed in your thank you message. A thank you message will be essential because it shows, of course, your gratitude for the opportunity, for their time. Um, and if you forget to send one or you choose not to, it will be noticed and noted as they're comparing other candidates. So make sure that you have that. Sometimes you can even draft it beforehand so you have it ready and then just put in some extra details from your conversation. um, and we'll look at that and talk more about that in a few slides, about how the thank you and how your follow-up can actually be used like strategically to strengthen your candidacy. Post interview, also important that you stay patient because you probably won't hear back right away in most cases, but don't panic. We'll talk about like how to really send a proper inquiry or message asking about the status of your candidacy within a reasonable time frame. Another piece to interview fundamentals is confidence. So, projecting your confidence. When a hiring team is comparing candidates that have similar experiences and similar skills, they're ultimately gonna they're ultimately gonna decide to hire the candidate or the person that is sure about their ability to do the job well. Um, so, when you do show your confidence, employers are more convinced or they assume that on the job you're going to be more likely to maybe take risks, to bring in new ideas, innovative ideas. You might even require less micromanagement, and those are all great things in their head. So yeah, make sure to practice these interview questions out loud, do a mock interview, just so you can kind of see like how you're coming off as if you are projecting confidence, in areas that you might need to improve on. Your mannerisms do matter. So, like I said, it's super normal to be nervous. A lot of recruiters and interviewers are empathetic to that, especially if you're new to this process. But we don't want our body language to be misread either. So, like if you are fidgeting or tapping, that might come across as you being distracted or you being disinterested, which of course that's not the case, but you never know how someone else is kind of taking that. So, as much as we can, try to maintain like open and calm body language. Sit up again, like stay engaged. Remember to smile. That's a really important piece of this all that can quickly forget, and just try to appear as relaxed as possible while still being attentive. Although easier said than done, try to tell yourself that you deserve to be there. They chose to interview you for a reason. Um, they obviously saw something in your application or in your resume that stood out to them and made a good impression. So just remember that. But comparing yourself to other candidates is only going to hurt you and not help your chances. So, as much as we can, try to emphasize your value. Um, and then, of course, last but not least, don't get discouraged if you don't make it through the entire interview process or you don't get chosen to move forward. Obviously, there's nothing fun about rejection or getting a no or trying your best and not really meeting those results you're looking for. But rejection can be redirection in a lot of ways. So make sure to ask for feedback so that it can help you improve for your next interview. And if anything, this experience will help you expand your network, and it's all a really great learning experience at the same time. All right, so here's a quick interview prep grid, which just kind of highlights what we're going to be focusing on throughout the next couple of slides. So we're going to kind of start with some common first questions you'll get in an interview, like tell me about yourself, or walk me through your resume, or why are you interested in this role or this company in this industry. We'll look at how to answer behavioral questions using that STAR format, and then how to ask or what type of questions are appropriate to ask an interviewer at the end of the interview. Okay. So we want to be prepared to talk about ourselves and our interest in the role in the company and in the industry. So almost every interview will probably begin with that tell me about yourself question. And this isn't necessarily your moment to share your entire life story, but instead I would say it's like an adapted elevator pitch, and your opportunity to just share who you are, why you're a good candidate, and why you're uniquely qualified, and then what makes you interested in this opportunity. And then throughout that, just showing again excitement for you know, for what's coming and what you're looking to do next. So here's a quick example. And as I read this, you'll notice it does sound pretty similar to the elevator pitch example we looked at last workshop. But here it kind of, as I'm reading through it, you can look to the side in the green box and kind of look through the different elements. So my name is Sam. I'm a sophomore accounting major at Eisenberg. I'm on track to meet the educational requirements for CPA licensure by May 2029, and I have a strong interest in an audit career. Since joining UMass, I've advanced both my interest in accounting and my collaborative skills, particularly through participation in Delta Sigma Pi. I'm excited about the opportunity to intern with your firm because I'm eager to learn from professionals who set the standard for integrity and excellence in public accounting. I look forward to sharing more about my background and how my motivation make me a strong fit for this audit internship. So there are so many different ways to adapt this and make it your own and make it unique and stand out. But as you can see here, really just quickly summarizing who you are, what your career goals are, what's your major? Do you have a double major? Are you looking to get a certificate? What are your CPA plans? And then what about this specific firm or opportunity stood out to you? Or like, what about us makes you feel like this is a good alignment? All right. So next, they will definitely be asking, maybe not as directly as like, why are you interested in this position? But in many different ways they can craft the question. It will essentially come down to like, what research have you done ahead of time to prepare for this interview? Or like, what do you know about us and what about this industry are you like excited about? Um, so by performing the research, both on the company and the position and the industry into your interview, this will let you kind of demonstrate that knowledge. And some areas where you'll be able to highlight that would be in those like basic or introductory questions like tell me about yourself, why you're interested in this company, how do you stay on top of industry trends, or this will also be shown at the end of the interview when you get a chance to ask them questions. So you might have questions about like where the industry is heading or how that applies to this team or this role. So again, first analyze the job description. So getting a better sense of what are they actually looking for, what skills, what qualifications, and you might not have all of them, and that's okay. But really focus on your strengths and what you are able to bring. Try to understand like what challenges you might face in this role or what the team is facing and how you can be a part of solving that. If there are any gaps between what you have and what the job is looking for, just be prepared to address those in the interview. Like, how do you plan to fill those gaps? Are you actively working on that right now? Because the last thing you want to do is get a question that catches you off guard and not really know how to respond to it. Researching the company. So you can definitely start with the company website. They're likely to have like an about us section or like a mission statement. You can read about their company history and their leadership, or if they have any strategic goals mentioned on their website. Um, Maybe if it's like a big company, they might have news, been in the news recently or in the media. So some recent kind of information that you might be able to share and just show them that you're kind of tracking these things. Networking is another great way to research and learn more about the company and the position. So alumni or industry professionals would be happy to meet with you and chat with you about how to best prepare and what to kind of expect or look for. Again, research the hiring team. If you have the names of the people you'll be talking to or interviewing with, check out their LinkedIn profile if they have one, or maybe you can find some info about them on their website just to kind of, again, see if there's any kind of commonalities you can touch on. And researching the industry. So I've linked here a couple of like my favorite industry reports and databases. LinkedIn has a great workforce page that has various reports on it. Um, you'll also see we do have a UMass Library business research page or business research guide, as I've highlighted on the slide. And this has a list of amazing career exploration or just career databases that you can use. So a couple include like Lightcast, the Occupational Outlook. IBIS World is a really amazing one because it provides like industry summaries and forecasts, and they even have like call prep questions on there that will help you prepare for interviews. Um, but if any of this is confusing or not super user friendly, feel free to make an appointment or meet with our business librarian, Allison Messier. She can help kind of navigate through this with you and where to find the right information that you're looking for. So if you go to that business research page, you'll find her information and how to make an appointment. All right. So there are always a pretty common set of interview questions that you'll likely face in any interview you get, and we always want to be prepared to answer them. So I've listed a couple here, some of which we've already talked about, like tell me about yourself, why you're interested in the role, company, and position, what trends or developments interest you in the industry. Another one would be like, what are your biggest strengths and weaknesses? And I want to talk about this one for a second, um, because again, it can be asked in a few different ways, but whenever you're asked about your strengths, you want to choose a strength that's relevant to the role and back it up with an example and just show some self awareness. So once you name your strength, for example, let's say you say adaptability, then you'll want to provide context or an example of in which way have you developed that strength over time, and then connect it back to the job. So that's great that you're adaptable, but why would that skill help you succeed in this position? Like what task or what environment would that kind of help with? Um, and then on the other hand, your weaknesses, I think there's a little bit of a misconception about how you answer the weaknesses question. Because I mean, for a long time, I thought like, okay, I should choose a weakness that could be turned into a strength. But in reality, you want to choose a real weakness, but one that is manageable and wouldn't impact your ability to do the job well. Nothing that would raise any red flags about you being a good fit for the opportunity. So again, name the weakness, try to avoid any like cliches, and then in your example or by adding context, you'll emphasize growth. So you'll kind of quickly address it and then say like, okay, but here's what I'm doing to improve, or this is a way that I'm actively working on this weakness and making progress on it. They just want to see that again, we're all self-aware and can admit where we might lack or have faults sometimes. Some other common questions would be, how has your education prepared you for this role? Why should we hire you? And then they get into all of the behavioral questions. The way that you'll know if it's a behavioral question is usually if it says, like, tell me about a time when, or, provide me with an example or share an example of this situation. And so it's asking you to give a really specific scenario of a time that you've like been in a certain situation or showed some type of skill or ran into some type of problem. So it could be, tell me about a time when you provided excellent customer service or solved a complex problem or had to collaborate with a team. Um, and so the questions they decide to ask you will probably be relevant to what would actually be asked of you on the job. So we'll look at how to answer some of those questions with the STAR format. And then at the end, of course, they'll ask you if you have any questions for them. And we'll, again, talk more about that soon. All right. So by analyzing the job description, this lets you kind of see what they want versus what you have. So one tool I recommend using when kind of starting to map out your interview stories is a T diagram. And this is kind of an example of what a T diagram looks like. On the left-hand side, you'll list out from the job description what they are seeking, like what keywords, what skills, are there any technology that they want you to know? And you can highlight those. And then on the right-hand side, try to map out and align experiences that you've had where you've developed certain skills or you've used that tool. And this will be the beginning of you building out your stories. ChatGPT or AI in general can be a tool to help you extract some of those keywords and skills from the job descriptions. So instead of you, especially if it's a super long job description and you're kind of getting lost in it, you can kind of copy and paste it into ChatGPT and ask it to extract keywords or key skills that will help you prepare for an upcoming interview you have for this company. So it will spit out the skills like technical or analytical skills, communication skills, or interpersonal skills, any other like kind of industry specific skills they might be looking for, even like traits or qualities that they're looking for in a candidate. If there's any themes that are being mentioned throughout the job description, it might highlight that to you. And then sometimes it even gives you interview prep tips. If not, you can always ask for it in a separate prompt. But basically, gathering these skills and keywords give you a better idea of what types of questions they might ask you. And then you'll know what to emphasize in your stories and in your responses. Many of you have probably taken the Clifton Strengths Assessment. This was, I believe, an assignment in your first year transitions class. So you would have received your top 5 strengths report. And if you've held on to those, you'll be able to potentially use this as a way to prepare for interviewing. So you'll have your strengths there and you can actually align examples under them or situations or experiences where you've demonstrated those strengths before. And so this is one way to also build up some of your responses and stories. Another thing I just wanted to point out quickly is I want to talk a little bit about career competencies. So, these are a set of 8 key skills that employers across all industries say are most important for career success. And these were developed by NACE, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And so they did this whole assessment to figure out what are kind of the top 8 things that employers are looking for in recent grads to hire. And so this basically helps you understand what it really means to be career ready. So some examples you'll see here like teamwork, technology, leadership, equity and inclusion, critical thinking, just some examples of what they might be seeking and looking for on the job and likely going to ask you in the interview. And so many of you are building these competencies already through your academics, through your jobs or internships or campus involvement. But we need to know how to, confidently talk about them in interviews to help you stand out. Okay. Before we jump into the STAR method, I just want to quickly remind you there are really limitless places that you can find behavioral interview questions to practice. But you don't, again, want to just prepare for a random set of interview questions. Instead, you want to, again, focus on what they're looking for from the job description and then practice the questions that will be focusing on those particular skill sets. So one place, of course, I Connect, we have resources all on interviewing, behavioral interviewing, technical interviewing, case interviewing. Um, Big Interview, yeah, Big Interview is our number one platform for behavioral interviewing. Um, and it's really the go-to place you'd want to start with if you're looking to do a mock interview, save some of your answers. And so I'll highlight that later on, but I also wanted to point out here that UMass has a career and professional development website, and they have sample interview questions as well. So you'll see here on the left, like general interview questions, most common interview questions, questions not to ask, how to handle inappropriate questions. So, situations you may not think about right away, but are good to prepare for. And these are, I think I linked them at the end. And then in addition to that website, again, ChatGPT, while it can help you gather keywords, it can also ask you behavioral questions too. So by putting in information about the interview that you've gotten so far, about the company, about and even putting in the job description, then it can spit out some behavioral questions for you that you might expect to get. So here's a prompt. I'll read it quickly. You can use something like this and adapt it, but provide me with 5 behavioral questions and 5 technical questions for a business student majoring in accounting and interviewing for a first round audit internship with a Big Four firm in the US. The questions should reflect the skills and competencies typically assessed for audit roles at the internship level based on this job description. So the more details you give in your prompt, the better quality questions you'll get, and the more likely it'll be aligned with what you actually would get in the interview. Okay. So interviewers want you to provide evidence of the ways that your skills and prior experiences have prepared you to be successful in the workplace going forward. And the STAR method provides a concise structure for you to talk about how your skills can provide or deliver impact. So the STAR method stands for situation, task, action, and result. And you'll see here that each piece of the STAR method involves something a little bit different. So situation, you'll briefly describe, the situation that you were in or given with enough context to understand what were the circumstances. The task describes what challenge maybe you were facing or what task you were given and basically what you were working towards. So each of those 2 parts, the situation and the task, are generally pretty quick, like 1 to 2 statements at most. And then you'll go into the action. The action, of course, is what did you do to solve the problem, or how did you, um, what steps did you take to manage this process? And so they want to see what your individual contributions were to the outcomes. And this is where you want to spend most of your time. So this typically would be 3 to 5 statements. Um, and this is where you can really highlight, your impact. And then after your action, the result, this can be one of the easiest pieces to forget to mention because we get through the action and then we're like, okay, that's what happened. But they always want to know, what did you learn from the experience, or what happened in the end? Like, did this, improve a situation? Or if not, what did you learn from it? Um, so the star method is really helpful to just kind of, once you have your stories in your mind, to try to like draw them out a little bit more. So we'll look at an example on the next slide. So here's an interview question. Tell me about a time you took the initiative to solve a problem. So a student might say in their situation, as a guest services agent at the Hilton, I frequently fielded questions about local restaurants and attractions, and a line would often form at the concierge desk, crowding the lobby. I needed to find a way to provide information quickly and serve a greater number of guests to make the check-in process more efficient. So I created a guest recommendations pamphlet containing brief write-ups, menus, directions, and contact information for area restaurants and attractions to be distributed upon check-in. As a result, I greatly reduced the wait time at the concierge desk and positioned the Hilton as truly caring about guest satisfaction. Local businesses promoted were thrilled and referred a higher number of people to the hotel. The pamphlet is still being used today, and the experience really allowed me to strengthen my customer service and problem solving abilities. So, this one, of course, maybe not as relevant to accounting, but this is more of a kind of customer facing experience. But they did a great job highlighting, where did they identify a problem? How did they take initiative to kind of solve that problem? And they were really specific about what they created and how they created it. And then as a result, how this helped provide a positive impact on the company. All right. So once you've kind of made it through the interview, then it's going to be your turn to ask questions. I suggest having questions prepared ahead of time, anywhere from 3 to 5 questions. You never know how much time you'll be left with. And so you don't want to, just ask 1 or 2 if you have a lot of time, or, if worse comes to worse and you don't have too much time left, it's okay if they don't get to everything that you ask, because you can ask later on too. But basically, asking thoughtful questions will show employers that you're eager to learn more. It's your chance to kind of interview them in a way too, because you're making a big decision for yourself. And we want your questions to be like specific and relevant to the job, or about the culture of the company or organization. So try to make your questions like as creative or unique as possible, maybe something they don't hear all the time, but things that you're genuinely curious about. Um, Try to avoid asking about pay or benefits or salary right away. This typically won't really be discussed until a later time, or even until an offer is made. Some companies might decide to bring that up earlier in the interview process, but you want to prepare for it regardless. If they do ask you about salary, make sure you're doing salary research ahead of time, just to understand, what maybe their budgeted range is and where you would fall in that range. Um, I recommend just meeting with a career coach, and we can help you understand how to really answer that question better. Okay. So we talked about pay and benefits. Don't ask questions that can be answered by the company website just by doing like a quick Google search. So again, we want them to know that you've thought about it, that you've done your research. So nothing that is kind of like common sense or just a quick could be quickly understood by doing research. Best type of questions to ask. So something about the role, something about maybe the team or the company, like what does success look like in this role? Or can you tell me about the team I'd be working with regularly? Um, or on the company side, like what are the current goals that this company is focusing on? Or how would someone in this role help to support those goals? There are many places you can find questions to ask, but again, I think networking is a great way to develop these questions as well to understand like what is this industry and company facing at this time, and what are some questions that will help me stand out. Okay, so interview follow up is equally as important as the interview itself. Within 24 hours of your interview, you'll want to compose and send a thoughtful thank you email to each of your interviewers. Of course, thanking them for their time. And this is also your opportunity to add any additional information or details maybe you forgot to in your discussion. So if you need to request their contact information before the interview ends, be sure to do that. It could be one of your last questions, like, oh, do you mind if I get a business card or your email so I can follow up if I have any other questions? So once you get their information, you can send those emails out. And again, highlighting any key takeaways or insights that you gained. And again, if you forgot to say something in the interview, this is your chance to add it in and just reinforce important points you didn't fully get to cover. Then the follow up. So after you send your thank you messages, you'll want to wait typically about 2 weeks before contacting them again. And once you do follow up, you'll basically just reiterate your interest and ask if there's anything else needed from you to kind of move the process along. You don't want to pressure the recruiter or the hiring team for a decision or for a response, but just let them know you're checking in. But if they tell you a time frame, like let's say they say, oh, we have a lot going on in the next few weeks, you probably won't hear from us for 3 weeks or so. Definitely don't reach out to them any earlier than that. But once that time has passed, then you can feel free to follow up just to ask for a status update. All right, feedback. So I think it's important that immediately after your interview, you kind of jot down or record notes about maybe what you were asked or how you answered them. Note like what went well in the conversation and what aspects maybe didn't go as well that you need to work on. This will help you for future interview performance. Um, and of course, let's say you don't get through to the next round, you can always ask for feedback from the interviewers as well. But you really don't want to ask for that feedback until the interview process has concluded. All right. So again, once you've made it through the interview, this is the time the hiring team will come together and review their candidates for next steps and everything. So sometimes I wonder too, like, what are they really looking for? What are they assessing? And so this is a like a study done from Chegg on employer and recruiter responses to like what impacts the decision to hire a candidate. And as you can see, some of the top positive factors that they're looking for are candidates' conversation skills, their industry knowledge, their enthusiasm, what type of questions that they prepared and asked. And then on the other hand, some negative factors that would impact their decision to hire a candidate is your attitude. Like, were you rude to staff members? Were you distracted, checking your phone? Did you show up late, interrupting, things like that, that we want to make sure to avoid as much as possible. All right. I'll finish up because I know we don't have too much time left, but Big Interview is a excellent tool for interview prep. Here you'll see how to access it. There's an amazing question library, question sets you can practice. There is a star answer builder tool that lets you kind of respond by answering each part of the star method. And there is an example here on how to do that. So it'll ask you to outline the problem or the task, ask what approach or action you took, and then what the results were. then it kind of compiles your answer all together and saves it for you. And so you can always come back to it for future interviews and keep updating it and adding more information if you need to. So again, you can log in and find Big Interview on iConnect. And this is a really good way to also practice video recorded interviews, like higher view interviews, because it's pretty much the same type of environment you'd be doing that in. Again, you have access to iConnect and the UMass Career Development website for those toolkits and for those guides. Those are linked here. And then our last slide has other resources like that business library research guide, the Dress for Success guide. We do have a professional wardrobe closet at Eisenberg as well. So if you're not looking to spend a lot of money on new interview clothes, or you need to, get some professional attire for a career fair, definitely suggest looking at that website, and you can see sort of an inventory of the items that they have for free. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I will stop sharing my screen. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to come off of mute or throw something in the chat too. Thank you, Chelsea, for putting the guide in the chat too. Well, again, feel free to meet with a career coach at any point for mock interview practice, for understanding what to expect, and just prepare ahead of time for any of your upcoming accounting interviews. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, Elena, and thank you everyone for your participation. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.